something very different.
Yeah, this is going to be something completely different, and this is where having an adaptable bike really comes into its own. What bike's been the most adaptable all the way through the season? It's been the Yamaha. We've seen it all the way through this year where different Yamaha riders have been really strong at different points, whether you're looking at Toprak all the way through the season or you're looking at Andrea Locatelli or Garrett Gerloff at different points, then that really has been the bike to be on if you're just looking for something that works in a very big operating window.
Inevitably, the final round of any season is always a time for goodbyes. It's going to be an emotional weekend for this man, Chaz Davies, who bows out of World SBK at the end of 2021, at the end of an illustrious career, one of World SBK's top 10 all-time greatest riders. I don't think there's too much doubt about that. Chaz Davies not alone in making what is a likely departure from the World SBK paddock. A couple of other riders not confirmed for retirement as such, but the likes of Leon Haslam, who you can see making his way down pit lane, likely to be moving on from the paddock at very least next season.
Yeah, for Chaz, obviously he came out a little bit early to Indonesia as well, so he's making the most of this week, a few days surfing, and for Leon Haslam, it looks like it's going to be the end of his time as a full-time rider in World SBK, but it looks almost certainly he's going to be racing next year, probably in BSB and the Endurance World Championship. So we might see him in as a wild card again at some point in the future, but certainly this looks like the end of his full-time time in World SBK.
Yes, and a similar situation for Tom Sykes as well. His ride not confirmed as far as 2022 is concerned. There's been a lot of speculation linking him with a move back to BSB as well, and a few words about a potential move over to Moto America, for example, for Tom Sykes. But as far as World SBK retirement, that's Chaz Davies who made that announcement in a press conference just a couple of short rounds ago while he was out on the injury list, in fact, whereas for Tom Sykes and Leon Haslam, they intend to extend their careers, but it looks likely not to be within World SBK.
Yeah, no real surprise that Chaz decided that if he wasn't racing in the World Championship, he wasn't that interested in keeping racing, whereas for someone like Haslam, you'd be very surprised to see Leon hang up his helmet because he just loves it. He wants to be out there racing all the time. See there for Van der Mark and for Toprak, just running in a little bit deep. That's down into turn 10, one of the slower corners of the track, and just exploring the track limits there. But certainly there's going to be a lot of riders running off at different points during the course of the action in this 45-minute session. It is going to be trying to get yourself up to speed.
Yes, both late breakers, but even for them that was a little unusual, just making the best use of the runoff area. That's what it's there for, isn't it?
That's it, exactly, and especially on your siding laps as well. You want to be able to make sure you're able to just get as much information as possible, and certainly for Toprak and Van der Mark, it's going to be important for them. This is a big weekend for both of those riders. Michael's got Indonesian heritage, always keen to get back here, and he's excited to race here in front of the Indonesian fans. And then obviously for Toprak, he wants to make sure he's able to just be fast all the way through this weekend, build himself up and get himself ready for potential title decider tomorrow.
Weekend of farewells, just caught sight of Scott Redding a couple of moments ago. Of course, this will be a final round for Scott Redding with Ducati. He'll be moving on to BMW machinery next season. One of the big surprises, one of the early surprises actually, of a very early silly season, and Scott Redding moving on to BMW machinery, certainly the big talking point of that. Means a last round for him on the Bologna bike. We'll see how he gets on, certainly wanting to finish in style.
Yeah, I think especially for Scott, he's going to be very aware that he's got a chance of winning races this weekend. He'll know that when the season starts next year, the chance of winning with that BMW package a lot smaller than they are with the Ducati, so he wants to make sure that he's able to pad out his wins tally in World SBK this weekend and then spend the winter really building up on that BMW. It looks like he's going to be out on track just before Christmas on that bike down in Moret as well, so that'll be his first test of the BMW machine.
Well, first laps about to come in. Riders looking fairly cautious so far, it must be said.
Oh yeah, everyone's just going to be taking it nice and steady at this stage, build themselves up. We saw in the Super Sport class, a 1:38 was the fastest time for Manuel Gonzalez, so you'd expect to see the Superbike riders down around the 1:34s by the end of this session, but it's all about just building yourself up to it. You can see there for Toprak.
That's caution, is it?
That's about as cautious as Toprak gets.
Is that a situation that could play against him this weekend, though? We've talked about the fact that it is a big point swing that Jonathan Rea has got to make up. Now, the circumstances in which Rea can make up those points, most likely a retirement for Toprak. We've seen a few of those this season, as you said, through no fault of his own, it should be added. Wet weather conditions, those have been one of the very few things that have played against Top Rack at times, most notably in past seasons, but on a couple of occasions in 2021 as well, or Top Rack making an error. Now, it hasn't happened so far this year, but if he is going to go full gas right the way to the end of this season, it is possible that he could get himself into some mischief.
Well, I think you have to look at how many times we've seen Top Rack and Jonathan Ray rubbing tyres with one another. How many times we've seen them side by side, bar to bar, all the way through this season. All it takes is a slight misjudgment, or one rider leading into the other a little bit more, and suddenly you can be on the deck. So for Top Rack, that's probably the biggest factor over the course of this weekend. Is he going to change his riding and his race style? I don't think so. That's not how Top Rack is. But we could easily have an incident between those two riders, because we've seen so much close action between them all the way through this season.
Would he change his approach if he only needed 10th position in the last race of the season?
I think if it comes down to Sunday, he can change his approach, but it's going to be tough for Top Rack to do that. He's very adamant. He wants to stick to his guns and win the championship the way that he's been riding all the way through this season. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how he approaches it, especially on Sunday.
To be perfectly honest, if we do get into a situation of Top Rack Razgatlioglu racing for race victories throughout this weekend, we wouldn't be surprised, and it would certainly not be something that would go against the grain, as it were. He's never pulled his punches throughout his World SBK career, and certainly not this season.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where for Top Rack, he knows how he's managed to get into this position, and he knows that on his day he's pretty much unbeatable, and I think he wants to make sure that this weekend he lays down a marker and shows that that's exactly what he's going to expect all the way through.
If anything, he's added an extra level to that since Assen in particular, a weekend where he was caught in the garage saying that's it, the championship's over. It was almost as if at that moment he said, well, from here on in, nothing to lose, because the championship in his mind, well, okay, in the heat of the moment, looked like it was slipping away from him. Jonathan Ray, 3 wins in a row, Top Rack a massive margin of points to recover. Twice he's managed to recover points and get back into the lead of this World Championship, and it's a lead that at the moment he doesn't look like surrendering.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where Top Rack will look at the points that have gone amiss for him from a bit of bad luck. Jonathan Ray will look at the points that have gone away from him, and more often than not for Jonathan, it's been because of his own mistakes. He's had to ride on the limit. We saw in places like Most and Donington Park and Portimao, he got caught out by that, and those 30 points added up very quickly for him. And over the course of the year, the two riders have been very evenly matched. But you'd have to say, on the balance of how the season's gone, Top Rack very much deserves to go into the championship decider with